What are we gonna do tonight, OCG?
Well, the same thing we try to do every night, Bertram. Take over YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, and this is a little impromptu retrospective on Final Fantasy X through 13-2. So, dear viewers, don't you dare forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Oh, and the gameplay you're seeing in the background is from Ever Crisis Final Fantasy VII. Because I couldn't figure out what to do with the bloody footage, and there's absolutely no way I'm going to attempt to finish that grindy piece of mobile gaming shit. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Starting with ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, joined once again by my faithful manservant slash Bucktotem Bertram. Say hello, Bertram.
Hello, Bertram.
And this is our retrospective for Final Fantasy X. So, dear viewer, don't you dare forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. So, Final Fantasy X is a role-playing video game, or RPG if you will, developed and published by Squaresoft in 2001, a year I remember fondly as the year I began an illicit affair with Cloud Strife.
Oh, poor Tifa.
Poor Tifa? Poor me. The man is hung like a bloody horse. My backside is in a worse state than the ruins of Zanarkand. Anyway, Final Fantasy X is the 10th main entry in the Final Fantasy series.
Oh, that means it's probably terrible.
What makes you say that?
Well, 10th entries in popular series are always terrible. Just look at Jason X or Hellraiser Judgment.
But they are movies, Bertram. We are talking about video games.
But I don't know another game series with more than 10 mainline titles.
Well, it must suck to be you, Bertram.
Well, Smarty Pants, name another 10th mainline entry in a video game series.
Fine. There's... Shut up, Bertram! Set in the fantasy world of Speeder, also known as Speeder, a setting influenced by the South Pacific, Japan, and Thailand. But sadly, unlike Thailand, this game does not feature any ladyboys or chicks with dicks, to use the scientific terminology.
Oh, you're a big fan of chicks with dicks, sir.
I am indeed, Bertram. I am indeed. So, Final Fantasy X's story revolves around a group of adventurers and their quest to defeat a rampaging monster known as Sin, also known as Sin, also known as a big whale-looking brother from another mother. Now our main character this time is Tidus, a star athlete in the fictional sport of blitzball, who finds himself in Speeder, also known as Speeder, after Sin, also known as Sin, also known as a big whale-looking brother from another mother, destroyed his home city of Zanarkand. Now, shortly after arriving in Speeder, Tidus becomes a guardian to Summoner Yuna, also known as this game's love interest / Totty. And together with their friends, they vow to destroy Sin, who just so happens to be Tidus's missing father, Jacked. Yes. So, let's talk about the development of Final Fantasy X. Now, Final Fantasy X began development in 1999 and was worked on by a team of over 100 people, most of whom worked on previous games in the series. Executive producer Hironobu Sakaguchi has stated that although he had concerns about the transition from 2D to 3D backgrounds, the voice acting, and the transition to real-time storytelling, the success of the Final Fantasy series can be attributed to constantly challenging the development team to try new things.
Oh, he had good reason to be concerned about the voice acting. Most of it is terrible.
'Tis true. I have heard better acting in a commercial for Thrush Cream, but I'm just happy to finally have a Final Fantasy game with voice acting. Where was I? Let's see, blah, try new things. Oh yes. Producer Yoshinori Kitase was also the chief director of Final Fantasy X, while the direction of events, maps, and battles was split up between Motomu Toriyama, Takayoshi Nakazato, and Toshiro Tsushida, respectively. And if I mispronounced any of those names, I don't care. The script for the game took approximately 3 to 4 months and was written by Tetsuya Nomura, Kazushige Nojima, Daisuke Watanabe, Toriyama, and Kitase. Coincidentally, it also took 3 to 4 months to do the voice recording afterwards.
And where did they find the quote-unquote voice actors? Wandering around the office?
Well, I can't confirm this, but I did once hear a rumor that all of the voice actors in this game were recruited from a brothel in Japan. Like I said, I can't confirm if it's true.
Have you ever visited a brothel in Japan?
Sadly not, Bertram. But I did write a martial arts film set in one. I called it Crouching Prostitute Hidden Sausage. Haha, that was a good script. What was I talking about before? Oh, yes. Music for Final Fantasy X was composed by Nobuo Uematsu, Masashishi Hamose, and Junya Nakano. Now, they were chosen for the soundtrack based on their ability to create music that was different from Uematsu's style, while still being able to work together. Now, the soundtrack, as well as featuring the usual instrumental tracks, also includes 3 songs with vocals.
What do you think of the music in this game, OCG?
Didn't you pay attention during my review, Bertram?
No.
Well, at least you're honest. So, what else can I tell you about the development of Final Fantasy X? Oh yes! Now apparently, the game was called 1717 early in Final Fantasy X's production. Apart from being a bloody terrible title, 17, that's the number 17. 17, as in SEVENTEEN. Apart from being an absolutely bloody terrible title, 1717's story differed from the final version. The protagonist, who looked similar to Titus, traveled the world seeking a cure for a pandemic that killed people when they reached the age of 17. Now, this inevitable death motif was later carried over to Yuna's fate as a summoner in Final Fantasy X. Luckily, someone at Squaresoft saw sense, and the game was changed to the Final Fantasy X we know and kinda love today.
Kinda love?
Well, love is maybe too strong a word. I'd say, I like it a lot. Yes. So, let's talk about the characters in the game. There are 7 main playable characters in Final Fantasy X, starting with Titus, a cheerful young teenager and a star blitzball player from Zanarkand, who seeks a way home after an encounter with Sin transported him to Spira. Now, Titus was originally envisioned to be a plumber, as to connect to the underwater elements used in the game. This was according to Nojima, but they later made him into a blitzball athlete, helping to distinguish his character from prior Final Fantasy protagonists. Though Titus's final outfit still incorporated elements of the original plumber outfit they had designed for him.
A plumber? Like Super Mario?
Indeed.
Oh, I'm glad they changed that.
As am I, Bertram. The only place I want to see a bloody plumber is fixing my toilet when I flush one too many body parts. Or in a 70s softcore pornographic film. So, Titus joins up with Yuna, a summoner on a journey to obtain the final Aeon and defeat Sin. Journeying with them are Kamare Ronso, a young warrior of the Ronso tribe who has watched over Yuna since her childhood. Waka, a blitzball player with a stupid haircut, whose younger brother was killed by Sin. And Lulu, a stoic black mage close to Yuna and Waka.
Didn't she win the Eurovision Song Contest at some point?
She did indeed, Bertram. Now, during the journey, our little group are joined by Orin, a former warrior monk who worked with both Titus's and Yuna's fathers to defeat Sin 10 years prior.
Did you know that Orin was originally supposed to be a silent protagonist?
I did indeed, Bertram.
Oh.
Finally, we have Riku, who is Yuna's cousin, a perky albed girl, and the first friendly person Titus meets upon arriving in Spira.
Riku is voiced by Tara Strong, who was also Harley Quinn in Arkham City, and played Lollipop Chainsaw.
You don't have to tell me that, Bertram. I am aware of Miss Strong's work. I often listen to her voice acting whilst I shower.
That's not creepy at all.
There are other characters in the game like Seymour, Brother, Sid, and Jecht.
Who's Jecht again?
Titus's father, And somehow the poor bastard has got himself turned into sin.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember.
Now, Titus's relationship with Jacked was based on stories throughout the ages, such as the ancient Greek legends. This would eventually reveal the key of sin's weakness and how to defeat the whale-looking bastard. Although Final Fantasy X was originally centered on the relationship between Titus and Yuna, the addition of Jack's character and his feud with his son was added later in the making of the game to provide more focus on how the father and son have a bigger impact in Spinner's history rather than the romantic couple. Katase found the story between Titus and Jet to be more moving than the story between Titus and Yuna. And I have to disagree. He obviously didn't pay attention to the game's ending, which even now makes me cry more than that time I got my penis stuck in the fridge door.
How did you... Oh, never mind.
So, let's talk about the gameplay for this game. We control Titus and move around the game world interacting with objects and people. But sadly, we cannot beat up random old people or engage in intercourse with NPCs.
And an NPC is...
A non-playable character.
Oh, and a character is...
Shut up, Bertram. Now, unlike previous games in this series, Final Fantasy X does not feature a world map, but rather a series of interconnected locations that you can later fast travel to using an airship. Map director Nakazato wanted to implement a world map concept with a more realistic approach than that of the traditional Final Fantasy game, in line with the realism of the game's 3D backgrounds, as opposed to pre-rendered backgrounds. So, combat. Like previous Final Fantasy games, this is a turn-based RPG. So in battle you control up to 3 characters, though a swapping system allows you to replace them with a character outside the active party at any time. Now each character will take it in turns to either attack the enemy, cast magic on them, or heal allies and or buff them up. Sounds boring, doesn't it?
Not really.
Granted, I used to love turn-based combat, but I've been so spoiled by the more action-centric Final Fantasy games like Final Fantasy 15, 7 Remake, and most recently, Final Fantasy 16.
You do like action.
I do.
Especially if it involves chicks with dicks.
I do. Haha. Now limit breaks, highly damaging special attacks, make an appearance in Final Fantasy X. But this time, they are called overdrives. In this version, most of the techniques are interactive, requiring button inputs to increase their effectiveness. What's different in Final Fantasy X is the way it handles summons. This time, 1, they are called Aeons, and 2, only Yuna can use summons, and they replace the party when called upon. They have their own HP, and they will stay until the battle is won, or the enemy fucks the Aeon up. Now you get 5 Aeons as part of the game's story, with another 3 obtainable through side quests. So, what else can I tell you about the gameplay? Oh yes! Now, like previous games in the series, Final Fantasy X features numerous mini-games, including the underwater sport Blitzball, which I find about as enjoyable as burning off my pubic hair with a soldering iron.
Ouch!
I hate it. It's essentially football or soccer, but underwater. You pass, you tackle, you score, and not in a good way. You can upgrade your team members, blah blah blah. I'm bored talking about it already. So, let's move on and discuss the sphere grids. As with previous titles in the series, you develop and improve your characters by defeating enemies and acquiring experience points. But in this game, they are called AP.
PP?
No, not AP. Ability points.
Oh!
Now you use these ability points to move around a grid and unlock nodes to upgrade your character's stats. And you can do this for all the characters. You can also unlock spells, etc. So for example, you can turn mage characters like Yuna into physical powerhouses. Or physical powerhouses like Orin into healers. Now at the start of the game, you can choose between a standard sphere grid or an expert sphere grid.
What's the difference between the two?
Well, the expert version starts each character in the middle of the sphere grid, so they can follow it however they want. But it does have fewer nodes, which means you can't get as many stat upgrades.
So why would you choose the expert sphere grid?
I don't know. Freedom of choice? Who cares? You use it to upgrade your characters. Right, so let's talk a little bit about the setting of Final Fantasy X.
Oh, do we have to?
Yes. Final Fantasy X is set in the fictional world of Spira, also known as Spira, and it consists of 3 subcontinents surrounded by small tropical islands.
What is a subcontinent?
I'm not sure, but I think it has something to do with being incontinent.
Oh, I doubt that.
Or maybe the word is to do with a continent you would find inside a sub, or submarine, if you will.
That doesn't make any sense.
You don't make any sense, Bertram. Stop asking questions and let me get on with this section. Otherwise, we'll be here all bloody night. So, Spira, also known as Spira, features locales like Bizet, Kilika, Meehead, Macalania, and Mount Gagazet.
Is Spira a real place?
What do you think, Bertram?
Yes? No? Maybe?
This is a video game, so of course Spira is a real place. Ha ha! It is very different from the mainly European-style worlds found in previous Final Fantasy games, being much more closely modelled on Southeast Asia.
But sadly, it does not feature any of the ladyboys or chicks with dicks that you so adore.
Yes, 'tis true. But there is a variety of races, though predominantly you'll encounter humans in the game. Among them are the Albed, a technologically advanced subgroup of humans with distinctive green eyes and unique language.
Oh, I met an Albed person once.
Oh, really? You never told me about this.
Yes, it was 2 years ago in the town of South Park, and he was called Big Gay Albed.
Oh, fascinating. Now, Speeder is also home to the Guado, which are less human in appearance, with elongated fingers. The main villain of this game, Seymour, is a Guado. There are other races, including the lion-like Ronso and the frog-like Hypello. We also have what the game calls the Unsent, strong-willed spirits of the dead that remain in corporeal form. In Spira, the dead who are not sent to the far plane by a summoner come to envy the living and transform into fiends, also known as monster bastards. And these monster bastards are who you encounter and fight throughout the game. There's also the usual mechanical enemies, giant insects and chocobos, who, like a prostitute, you can ride for a fee. Haha. Right, so let's quickly recap the entire story from beginning to end. Wait a minute. Have a sip of my coffee. Which tastes an awful lot like a gin and tonic. Right, let's go. So, the game begins. Tidus waits with his allies outside the ruins of an ancient city. He narrates the events that led to the present, spanning most of the game's storyline. The game begins proper in his home city, the high-tech metropolis of Zanarkand, where he is a renowned blitzball player and son of the famous blitzball star Jecht, an abusive father who disappeared 10 years prior. During a blitzball tournament, the city is attacked by an immense creature that Orin, a man not originally from Zanarkand, calls Sin, also known as Sin, also known as a big weird whale-looking thing. Now Sin destroys Zanarkand and takes Tidus and Orin to the world of Spira, also known as Spira. Now upon arriving in Spira, Tidus is rescued by Albed salvagers, with the young Riku explaining that Sin destroyed Zanarkand 1,000 years ago. After Sin attacks again, Tidus is separated from the divers and drifts to the tropical island of Besaid, where he meets Waka, captain of the local blitzball team. He has a stupid haircut. Waka introduces Tidus to Yuna, a young summoner about to go on a pilgrimage to obtain the final Aeon and defeat Sin. With her guardians Lulu, a mage of black magic, and Kimari, a member of the Ronso tribe. the party travels across Spira to gather Aeons, defending against attacks by Sin and its offspring, called, unsurprisingly, Sinspawn. Titus meets Orin again, who convinces Titus to become Yuna's guardian upon revealing that Jacked is Sin's true identity.
Oh my!
Yes. 10 years ago, Orin and Jacked bodyguarded Yuna's late father Braska to defeat Sin. But Jacked became a new Sin. As Yuna's party continues their pilgrimage, Titus reunites with Riku, who the party learns is Yuna's cousin. When the party arrives in the city of Guado Salam, the leader of the Guado and major clergy member, Seymour Guado, proposes to Yuna, saying that it will ease Spira's sorrow. At Macalania Temple, the group discovers a message from the spirit of Seymour's father, Lord Jiskel. He declares that he was killed by his own son. Ha ha! How Shakespearean! And that Seymour now aims to destroy Spira. The group reunites with Yuna and kills Seymour in battle. Soon afterwards, Sin attacks, separating Yuna and sending the others to the arid Bikanel Island. Now, while searching for Yuna at the island's Al Bed settlement, Titus has an emotional breakdown when he learns that summoners die after summoning the final Aeon, leading to his desire to find a way to defeat Sin whilst keeping Yuna alive. I mean, after all, they cannot consummate their ongoing relationship if she's dead. Well, I suppose they could, but that would be kind of weird. Anyway, back to the story recap. The group finds Yuna in Bevel, the center of the clergy's power, where she is being forced to marry the unsent Seymour. They crash the wedding, after which Seymour reveals his plan to become Sin with Yuna's help. The party defeats him a second time and escapes with Yuna. The group heads towards the ruins of Zanarkand, seen in the introduction of the game. Now, shortly before arriving at Zanarkand, Titus learns that he, Jacked, and the Zanarkand that they hail from are summoned entities akin to Aeons based on the original Zanarkand and its people. Long ago, the original Zanarkand battled Bevel in a Machina war, in which the former was defeated. Zanarkand's survivors became Faith, so that they could use their memories of Zanarkand to create a new city in their image, removed from the reality of Spira. Once they reached Zanarkand, Yunalesca, the first summoner to defeat Sin, and unsent ever since, tells the group that the final Aeon is created from the faith of one close to the summoner.
My god, this is so complicated.
Shut up, Bertram. Now, after defeating Sin, the final Aeon kills the summoner and transforms into a new Sin, which has caused its cycle of rebirth to continue. The group decides against using the final Aeon due to the futile sacrifices it carries and the fact that Sin would still be reborn. Yunalesca tries to kill Titus's group, but she is defeated in battle and vanishes, ending hope of ever attaining the final Aeon. After the fight, the group learns that Yu Yebin, the deity of the Yebin religion, who was a summoner from Zanarkand before losing his humanity and mind, is behind Sin's cycle of rebirth. This leads the group to infiltrate Sin's body in order to find Yu Yebin. Now inside Sin, the party finds, you guessed it, the unsent Seymour, who had been absorbed by Sin and intends to control it from within. Yuna defeats him for the final time before sending him to the far plane. Shortly after, the group reaches the core of Sin and finds Jecht's imprisoned spirit. Tidus and Jecht come to terms with the latter's abuse, and Jecht transforms into his final Aeon form, asking the party to defeat him and end the cycle. Of course, they do so. Haha. With Sin's host defeated, Yuna summons and the group defeats each Aeon after Yu Yebin possesses each one until finally they vanquish Yu Yebin himself.
I'm gonna say it again, this is so complicated.
Shut up, Bertram, we're almost done. Sin's cycle of rebirth ends when Yuna sends Sin and the Aeons to the far plane, and the spirits of Spina's faith are freed from their imprisonment. Orin, who had been revealed to be unsent, is sent to the far plane. Dream, Zanarkand, and Tidus disappear, now that the freed faith stopped the summoning. Afterward, in a speech to the citizens of Spina, Yuna resolves to help rebuild their world now that it is free of sin. In a post-credit scene, Tidus awakens underwater and drowns miserably. No, sorry, I misread that last part. In a post-credit scene, Tidus awakens underwater and swims towards the ocean's surface. Ha ha! Splendid! Don't you think so, Bertram? Bertram, are you asleep again? God damn it! Final Fantasy X was released in 2001 for the PlayStation 2 to critical acclaim. 2 years later, there will be a direct sequel called Final Fantasy X2. And in 2013, both games will be remastered and released as Final Fantasy X/X2 HD Remaster for the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation Vita. Now that collection would release for the PlayStation 4 in 2015, Windows in 2016, and for the Nintendo Switch and Xbox One in 2019. Haha, sucks to be you, Nintendo Switch and Xbox One. Today, Final Fantasy X is regarded as one of the better Final Fantasy games. And while we wait for Final Fantasy X3, which will probably never materialize, if you haven't already, then I implore you, dear viewer, to buy, download, steal, or sell your body to get your hands on Final Fantasy X and play it, goddammit! And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our retrospective for Final Fantasy X. If you enjoyed this little video of ours, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then feel free to give me a thumbs down. If you would like to see my review for Final Fantasy X, or a full playthrough with hilarious commentary by yours truly. Both of those videos are on the channel right now, so go and watch them, goddammit! But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Say goodbye, Bertram.
Goodbye, Bertram.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, joined once again by my faithful manservant / fucktotem Bertram. Say hello, Bertram.
Hello, Bertram.
And this is our retrospective for Final Fantasy X2. So, dear viewer, don't you dare forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Final Fantasy X2 is a role-playing video game that was developed and published by Square for the PlayStation 2 in 2003. A year I remember fondly as the year I first fantasized about Yuna bringing me breakfast in bed whilst I am snuggled up with Lulu and her massive coconuts. Haha.
Yuna? Lulu? Those are characters from Final Fantasy X.
You don't say, Bertram.
I do say.
Idiot. Anyway, Final Fantasy X2 is a direct sequel to 2001's Final Fantasy X and tells the story of Yuna, summoner extraordinaire, as she searches for her love interest with a small penis from Final Fantasy X. She does this by participating in a ménage à trois with returning female character Riku and newcomer Pain.
What does ménage à trois mean?
I don't really know, Bertram. I don't speak Elvish, but it has something to do with 3 people, or the number 3. So I thought it was appropriate. Haha. Basically, Yuna teams up with 2 other pieces of toddy, and together they team up to search for Tidus, the love interest with the small penis I was telling you about, as well as saving Speeder from a big mechanical dinosaur-looking thing and a chap who looks a lot like Tidus. You know, the love interest with the small penis I was telling you about.
Oh, that joke is going to get old very quickly.
Well, haha, lucky for you, that's the last time I'll be making it.
Well, Final Fantasy X2 sounds very exciting.
Oh, it really is. Well, mostly. Go and watch my review for my full, unedited thoughts on the game.
Is that the review you make that really inappropriate joke about Cloud from Final Fantasy VII and a garden gnome?
Oh, haha, you'll just have to watch it and find out.
Oh, but I'd rather clip my toenails than watch one of your bloody reviews.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Development for Final Fantasy X2 began in late 2001 and was a response to the success of Final Fantasy X, a game that my Uncle Roberto called, better than the making of the love.
Whatever happened to your Uncle Roberto?
He had a fatal heart attack while making of the love.
Oh.
The production team initially disliked the name X2, Probably because, like me, they thought it sounded like the second DVD in a release of X-rated scenes featuring your favorite Final Fantasy characters. But the title was eventually accepted, since the story was a direct continuation of the previous story, and thus could not be the next numbered game in the Final Fantasy series.
What was the next numbered game in the Final Fantasy series?
Well, if the last numbered entry was Final Fantasy X, that would make the next one...
Final Fantasy 12?
No. Try again.
Final Fantasy 10?
No. I already said the last one was called Final Fantasy X. What comes after 10?
Fondle time?
What?
Well, usually after 10 p.m., I retire to my room to...
No. What number comes after the You know what, Bertram? Never mind. Why do I put up with you?
Because I know where all the bodies are hidden.
Anyway, Kazushige Nojima, the previous game's writer, was also skeptical about the creation of a sequel. He was particularly averse to the happy ending, which he felt was wrong for the story.
Oh, what the hell does he know?
For once, I agree with you, Bertram. I was never a massive fan of Final Fantasy X's sad ending, so I'm glad that X2 fixes that. If you want to know what the hell I'm talking about, don't worry, I'll be recapping the story in just a moment. Or better yet, go and play the game for yourself, you lazy bastard. What was I saying? Oh, yes. The production team was 1/3 the size of its predecessor. Now, this was because the team was already familiar with the material, and a significant number of character models, enemies, and location designs would be recycled from Final Fantasy X. This meant that it only took about a year to create Final Fantasy X2.
A year? Wow! You can barely use the bathroom in that amount of time.
Don't exaggerate, Bertram. Producer Yoshinori Katase and director Motomo Toriyama explained that the objective in mind when designing Final Fantasy X2 was to make it more upbeat than its predecessor.
How do you make a Final Fantasy game more upbeat?
Simple, Bertram. You basically make the 3 lead characters an anime version of Charlie's Angels, and you add a J-pop song at the beginning. Oh, and you also allow your lead characters to change into colorful outfits mid-battle.
Oh!
Right. Don't get too excited, Bertram. Sadly, we do not get to see the characters naked whilst they are changing.
Oh.
Because of the events of Final Fantasy X, this game could not feature summons, or Aeons, as they are called in Final Fantasy X. So the developers had to come up with other gameplay elements, hence the changing outfits I mentioned, and much more which I'll discuss when we talk about this game's gameplay.
That doesn't sound right.
What doesn't sound right?
Following up the word games with gameplay.
Well, what should I have said then?
How about when we talk about Final Fantasy X2's gameplay?
Fine. I'll discuss that when we talk about Final Fantasy X2's gameplay. So, what else can I tell you about the development of the game? Check notes, Oh, yes! The music was composed by Noriko Matsuda and Takahito Eguchi. And the soundtrack includes that's right, not one, but two, J-pop pop songs. J-pop pop song. No, that doesn't sound right. I haven't been followed up. The soundtrack features not one, but two pop J-pop song. Pop of the J songs. Songs of the pop J variety. No. A variety of pop J-pop. The soundtrack features not one, but two songs. Real emotion and 1,000 words, both of which play during two of the best cutscenes in Final Fantasy X2.
Oh, I love those songs.
And if you start singing them, I'll castrate you again, Bertram.
Oh, please don't. I just got the stitches out.
In Final Fantasy X2, you'll explore Spina by jumping, climbing, fighting enemies, and doing side quests.
But you hate side quests.
Well, luckily for me and you, the side quests are optional.
Why am I lucky?
Because if I had to do a single side quest, I said to myself that I'd jam the controller down your throat and make you poop it out.
Oh, I am lucky. I don't remember jumping or climbing in Final Fantasy X.
That's because it was introduced in this game, Bertram.
Oh!
And it's an addition that would make its way into Final Fantasy XIII. Now, unlike Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X2 is split into chapters, and you can visit almost every location in Spina from an early point in the game via airship.
Is an airship similar to an Uber?
Kind of. Except it flies. And it's far more impressive looking. And most of them aren't driven by a chap or chapette who could drive you into a dark alley and murder you.
That's never happened to me.
You don't bloody say. Anyway, if you do every story mission as well as most of the side quests, you can unlock a secret ending. And as much as I hate side quests, I do like me some secret endings. And Final Fantasy X2 has a particularly good one. Oh, and there's also several mini-games, including Gunner's Gauntlet, which is a shooter game, and Spear Break, which is a math-based coin game, as well as a management sim based on Blitzball, the fictional underwater sport from Final Fantasy X.
You hate the Blitzball, don't you?
More than I hate pornography without subtitles. Now, when you finish Final Fantasy X2 for the first time, you'll unlock a New Game Plus, which will let you replay the game with your completion percentage intact, but sadly, your character levels are reset. Ho ho. So, let's talk about the combat. The combat in Final Fantasy X2 uses an enhanced version of the active time battle system from Final Fantasy X. To put it simply, bar fills up. When full, you can attack an enemy, or use an item, or heal/buff an ally, or rip your clothes off and do the fandango. Maybe not that last one, but someone should put it in a Final Fantasy game. Bertram, write this down. Dear Square Enix, in Final Fantasy 17, I demand a move in which our characters rip their clothes off and do the fandango. That's FANDANGO. Signed, the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer. Got it?
Got it!
Good. Now Final Fantasy X2 allows characters to change their character class mid-battle using dress spears and the garment grid. Now these dress spears are based on Final Fantasy character classes, allowing access to different abilities to alter the course of battle. Now the garment grid is a placard thing with a geometric shape connected by nodes. Basically, characters have access to dress spears placed in the nodes. Now, depending on the properties of the garment grid, changing dress spears in battle will grant bonuses such as increased strength, bigger breast size, added elemental effects, and characters can learn new skills for each dress spear with the use of ability points. And ability points are earned by defeating enemies and by using items and abilities for that spear. Understood?
No?
Well, tough. Now, like I have already said, our three main playable characters of Final Fantasy X2 are Yuna, Riku, and Pain. They are all members of a spear hunter group called the Seagull Wings.
I think they're just called the Gull Wings.
Whatever. Yuna was inspired to join this little group after viewing a spear recording that appeared to show Tidus. You can see this in the Eternal Calm cutscene that takes place in between Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X2, and is included in the Final Fantasy X I thought I said that wrong. I don't think I did. Bartram, did I say that wrong?
Say what wrong?
Never mind. Anyway, Eternal Calm cutscene that takes place in between Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy X2, and is included in the Final Fantasy X/X2 HD Remaster Collection.
That cutscene was originally included in the Japanese version of Final Fantasy X International for PlayStation 2.
You don't say.
I do say.
Anyway, Yuna and Riku are joined in their little quest by Pain, a new character for Final Fantasy X2. And she's quite a looker. I'm not usually a fan of women with short hair. I can't even watch Alien 3 without wanting to throw up. But Pain sort of pulls it off.
She pulls her hair off?
No, pulls off that particular look. It suits her.
Oh!
You really are an idiot, Bertram.
Says the man who thought the capital of the United Kingdom was Legoland.
Shut up, Bertram. I was 12 when I thought that. Anyway, apart from our main cast of playable characters, we have some returning chaps and chapettes from Final Fantasy X, including Brother, Waka, and Lulu. Speaking of Lulu, she's pregnant in this game, and I can confirm that I am not the father.
Thank you for clarifying that. I mean, I was wondering.
Don't be sarcastic, Bertram, or I'll castrate you again.
Oh, please don't. I just got the stitches out.
Now, Final Fantasy X2 introduces some new colorful characters, such as Mevin Nuge, the leader of the Progressive Youth League, Praetor Badalai, the leader of the reformist New Yemen Party, Gipple, who leads the Machine faction. We also have the LeBlanc Syndicate, a group of spear hunters who serve as the Gullwing's rivals for much of the game. The game's main antagonist is Shuyin, the unsent spirit of a fallen soldier during the Machina War 1,000 years ago, who just so happens to look a lot like Tidus, including his equally small penis. Final Fantasy X2 takes place 2 years after Final Fantasy X, and is set in the fictional world of Spira, which is largely unchanged since Final Fantasy X, and many locations make an appearance here, including Besaid, Kilika, Mount Gagazet, the ruins of Zanarkand, Josie. But luckily there's no appearance from those annoying cluster of trials from the last game, or that giant whale-looking bastard.
Sin?
Not right now, Bertram.
No. The giant whale-looking thing was called Sin, wasn't it?
Yes. I knew that's what you were talking about. Yes, it was.
For the benefit of those who might not have played Final Fantasy X or seen your previous retrospective, why don't you tell us more about Spira and its many colorful races?
Why would people not have played Final Fantasy X or watched my previous retrospective? The only people who have an excuse not to do that are dead people, and even then, I'd still be pissed off with them if they haven't watched my...
Oh, just get on with it.
Fine. Spira consists of 3 subcontinents surrounded by small tropical islands. It is very different from the mainly European-style worlds found in previous Final Fantasy games, being much more closely modelled on Southeast Asia. There is a variety of races, though predominantly you'll encounter humans in the game. Among them are the Albed, a technologically advanced subgroup of humans with distinctive green eyes and unique language.
I met an Albed person once.
Fascinating. Spira is also home to the Guado, which are less human in appearance, with elongated fingers a la Freddy Krueger. There are also other races, including the lion-like Rodzu and the frog-like Hypillo. There's also the usual mechanical enemies, giant insects and chocobos. But sadly, there is a distinct lack of prostitutes, male, female, and or undecided. Right, so let's recap the story for Final Fantasy X2. So, 2 years after Sin's defeat, Yuna, Riku, and Pain recover Yuna's stolen garment grid from the LeBlanc Syndicate in the first of several encounters in which they vie for spears. The game is punctuated by a narration of Yuna addressing Tidus, as though she is recounting the events of the game to him as they occur. Crazy bitch. Meanwhile, the Gullwings discover a spear containing images of an ancient Machina weapon called Vegnagun that was secretly buried beneath the veil. The weapon has enough power to threaten all of Spira. The Gullwings join forces with the LeBlanc Syndicate to investigate the underground areas of the city in an attempt to destroy the machine before it can be used by either side in the upcoming conflict. However, discovering a large tunnel recently dug into the floor of the weapon's chamber, they realize that Vegnagun has apparently moved to the far plane, located deep below ground. Disagreements between Spira's factions are exasperated, that's it. Spira's factions are exasperated by the disappearance of their leaders, Baralai, Nuj, and Gipal. In the underground areas of Bavel, the Gullwings discover the missing faction leaders discussing Vegnagun and learn that the machine's artificial intelligence allows it to detect hostility and respond by fleeing. Pain had once been comrades with all three men during an operation in the Den of Woe. 2 years earlier, their squad explored the cave, but a vengeful spirit drove them to kill one another. The 4 were the only survivors. The spirit, Shuin, a soldier from the Machina War that led to the creation of Vegnagun, possessed Nuj and later forced him to shoot his comrades. Under Bavel, Shuyin possesses Baralai and follows Vegnagun to the far plane. Nuj and Gapal pursue, asking Yuna to keep things under control on the surface. Yuna falls into the far plane and meets Shuyin, who mistakes her for a woman named Len, which isn't usually a woman's name, but in this game it is. A woman named Len, whose memories are recorded in the songstress dress sphere. 1,000 years ago, Shuyin was a famous blitzball player in the high-tech metropolis of Zanarkand, and Len's lover. Deciding to save Len, who had been conscripted into the Machina War between Zanarkand and Bavel, he infiltrated Bavel to hijack their secret weapon, Vegnagun. Len begged him to stop, and Shuyin yielded. But a group of Bavel soldiers arrived a moment later and fucked the couple right up. Basically, they executed them. They executed the couple. In the present, Shuyin's spirit expresses anger that the people have still not understood the pain of war and plans to use Vegnagun to destroy all of Spira in retribution. The Gullwings organize a concert to which everyone in Spira is invited, supporters of the Youth League and New Yevon alike. The songstress dress sphere displays the scene of Shuyin and Len's last moments to all the concert goers, opening their eyes to the unproductive nature of their disagreements. Although the factional fighting had ceased, Shuyin's plan proceeds. Joining forces with the LeBlanc Syndicate again, the Gullwings make their way to the Farpling and find Gipple and Nuge already battling Vegnagun. Once the group destroys Vegnagun, Yuna masquerades as Len to convince Shuyin to let go, but Shuyin eventually sees through her and attacks. The Gullwings defeat him, and Len's spirit appears to soothe him as they depart together. By fulfilling certain conditions, the ancient spirits known as Faith agree to restore Tidus to life and reunite him with Yuna. The end.
Why did you sing that?
I have absolutely no idea. Anyway, that's the story for Final Fantasy X2. Final Fantasy X2, released in 2003 for the PlayStation 2 to mostly positive reviews. The game was re-released in high definition for the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita in 2013, alongside Final Fantasy X as Final Fantasy X/X2 HD Remaster. Now, this version was later released for the PlayStation 4 in 2015, Windows in 2016, and the losers who play Nintendo Switch and Xbox One, well, they didn't get it until 2019. Ha 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 ha! Now, if you haven't already, then I implore you to buy, download, steal, or sell your body to get your hands on Final Fantasy X2 and play it, goddammit! So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our retrospective for Final Fantasy X2. If you enjoyed this little video of ours, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then, feel free to give me a thumbs down. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Say goodbye, Bertram.
Goodbye, Bertram.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, joined once again by my faithful manservant / Bucktotem Bertram. Say hello, Bertram.
Hello, Bertram.
And this is our review for Final Fantasy X2 HD Remaster. So, dear viewer, don't you dare forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Final Fantasy X2, which sounds like the second collection of hot scenes featuring your favorite Final Fantasy characters, was released in 2003. A year I remember fondly as the year I made a collection of hot scenes featuring your favorite Final Fantasy characters and released it to the public via the black market.
Oh, who do you think is the most attractive Final Fantasy character?
Probably Cloud, but only in the remake. And only when he's dressed up as a girl. Ooh la la! Ha ha! Anyway, Final Fantasy X2 is a direct sequel to Final Fantasy X, which sounds like the first collection of hot scenes featuring your favorite Final Fantasy characters. But how does Final Fantasy X2 compare to Final Fantasy X? Well, let's review the bloody game and find out. So, story. Yuna, the summoner Totty from Final Fantasy X, searches for Tidus, the hero Totty from the previous game, all the while trying to stop a new threat to Spira. To do this, she, apparently, starts a band and teams up with Riku, the Al-Bhed bit of Totty from the last game, and a new character, Pain, who is, you guessed it, also a bit of Totty.
But nothing like Cloud dressed as a girl, am I right?
You don't know how right you are, sir.
Isn't this game aimed at girls who don't usually play games like Final Fantasy?
Oh, no worries there, Bertram. I am wearing women's underwear, so I'm allowed to play this game.
Oh!
And I should have said before, dear viewers, but this is the HD remaster of Final Fantasy X2 I am masturbating to. I mean, reviewing today. Haha. So, gameplay. This is once again a turn-based RPG. But what's different this time is you can change your character's class mid-battle. So for example, you can go from a warrior to a berserker to a pawn star, all within the same battle. And depending on what class you have equipped, will determine what attacks you can use. Haha.
Oh, sounds complicated.
Did you know, Bertram, that this game inspired Avril Lavigne to write the song Complicated?
Really?
No, not really. Final Fantasy X2 also has a mission-type structure and some very, very light platforming and puzzle-solving. There's also some rather catchy musical numbers, including an amazing one that just so happens to play over my favorite part of the game. A big FMV cutscene that links Yuna's love story with someone else's. You'll know what part I'm talking about if you played the game before. Speaking of which, yes, I recommend this game. It's a little light on story, but it's very good and very funny at times. Ha 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 ha.
What's wrong with you?
Oh, sorry, Bertram, I was just thinking about one of the funny bits in the game. Not to mention all the totty I was talking about earlier.
Oh, but sadly no Cloud dressed as a girl.
It's alright, Bertram. He's coming round for dinner later. Ha ha! Tonight's the night, Bertram. I can feel it in my penis. Anyway, Final Fantasy X2 is splendid. And if you're a Final Fantasy X fan or a Final Fantasy fan in general, well, you've probably already played it, but if you dismissed this as a girly game back when it was released, maybe give it a try. Your erection and or wetness will thank you. Haha. So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My review for Final Fantasy X2. If you enjoyed this little review of mine, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then feel free to give me a thumbs down. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Say goodbye, Bertram.
Goodbye, Bertram.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, joined once again by my faithful manservant slash factotum Bertram. Say hello, Bertram.
Hello, Bertram.
And this is our retrospective for Final Fantasy XII. So, dear viewer, don't you dare forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Final Fantasy XII is a role-playing video game that was developed and published by Square Enix in 2006. A year I remember fondly as the year I followed Solid Snake home from a party and caught him playing with his liquid snake.
Oh,
Don't you oh me, Bertram. I got you playing with your revolver Ocelot last night.
You did?
I did. Anyway, that's enough of these Metal Gear Solid puns. We're not here to discuss those games, though we will eventually. We are here to discuss Final Fantasy XII, which is, you guessed it, the 12th main entry in the Final Fantasy series of games.
How many Final Fantasy games are there in total?
Let me just access that part of my brain where that information is stored.
Do you need a spoon?
No, thank you. I have a knife right here. Okie dokie. Including console, mobile, handheld, and remasters slash remakes, there is over 100 Final Fantasy games.
Oh, that's a lot.
Oh, that's nothing. I've got ideas in my head for 123 video games.
Oh, I'm surprised there's enough room in your head for that many ideas.
My head is like Mary Poppins' bag. Wow, we've had references to Metal Gear Solid and now Mary Poppins. This is a Final Fantasy video, isn't it?
I think so.
So, Final Fantasy XII's story takes us to Ivalice, where the empires of Arcadia and Rosaria are waging an endless war. Dalmasca, a small kingdom, is caught between the warring nations. When Dalmasca is annexed, that means fucked up. When Dalmasca is annexed by Arcadia, its princess, Ash, creates a resistance movement. During the struggle, she meets Van, a young adventurer who dreams of becoming a sky pirate in command of an airship. They are quickly joined by a band of allies, and together they rally against the tyranny of the Arcadian Empire.
Oh, that sounds exciting.
It really is. Well, mostly. Go and watch my review for my full unedited thoughts on the game.
Is that the review you make that really inappropriate joke about Zidane from Final Fantasy IX and a banana?
Well, you just have to watch it and find out.
Oh, but I'd rather play with my revolver Ocelot than watch it.
What did you say?
Nothing.
Development for Final Fantasy XII took 5 years and began in December 2000 and was headed by Final Fantasy Tactics Director Yasumi Matsuno and Final Fantasy IX Director Hiroyuki Ito.
What do you think of Final Fantasy Tactics? People love it!
Yes, people also love Skyrim, and you know what I think about that.
That you would rather wipe your backside with barbed wire than play Skyrim again?
You got it! And sadly, I feel the same way about Final Fantasy Tactics. But luckily, we're not here to discuss Final Fantasy Tactics. What was I talking about? Oh yes, Final Fantasy XII's development. Now, Matsuno provided the original concept and plot for the game, but was forced to bow out a year before release due to health concerns.
Oh, what was wrong with him?
His penis randomly exploded one morning.
Really?
No, not really. So, as a result of that, the development team and a new duo stepped forward to direct the game. Ito and Hiroshi Minagawa, while Akitoshi Kawazu of Saga series fame became the game's executive producer. Series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi was disappointed by Matsuno's departure and declined to play the game beyond its introduction.
Oh, that's not very nice.
I know. I could never play a Final Fantasy game's intro and then just stop. That would make me go insane.
Aren't you already insane?
Yes, but that's because I played the first hour of Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings before my penis randomly exploded, taking my Nintendo DS and Final Fantasy XII Revenant Wings with it.
Oh!
Anyway, after Matsuno's departure, Miwa Shoda wrote a storyline for the game premised on the basis of the cutscenes and world setting that had already been finished. Scenario writer Daisuke Watanabe then fleshed out Shoda's plot into a script. Now, this script was then translated into English by Alexander O. Smith, who had previously worked on Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy X. What else can I tell you about the development? Oh yes! Now, at the beginning of the game's development, it was decided to move away from the random encounters that plagued Final Fantasy games for years.
You really don't like random encounters, do you?
Can't stand them. Which is why, when a prostitute randomly approaches me when I walk down the street, I have the desire to hold the R2 and L2 buttons to escape. So instead of random encounters, the developers developed the Active Dimension Battle System, or ADBS, if you will.
ADBS? Is that similar to ADHD?
No! So shut up, ASAP. The ADBS allows the player to move seamlessly from battle to exploration. This also led to the creation of the Gambit system, which we will discuss in more detail later. At the early stages of development, a two-player mode was considered for the game, along with an idea that you could recruit NPCs to join in mob hunts.
Mob hunts? Who do you hunt down? The best? Michael Myers? The Freeman?
No, just monsters.
Oh!
Now that and the two-player idea were dropped early though, due to limitations with the PlayStation 2 hardware.
Oh, the option to play the game in co-op would have been amazing.
Well, luckily you can do that in Final Fantasy 11 and 14.
Oh, maybe we can play Final Fantasy 14 after we finish this little retrospective.
Come now, Bertram. You know I hate playing with commoners online.
I told you this before. You can't catch a disease off them playing a game online. It's not like you're in the room with them.
Don't lie to me, Bertram. You know full well that I caught a cold off that 19-year-old bastard I played Diablo 3 with back in 2017.
That was your nephew. And you were in the same room. In the same bed.
Moving on. Now, the music for Final Fantasy XII was composed by Hitoshi Sakamoto, with Hayato Matsuo and Masaharu Iwata creating 7 and 2 tracks respectively. Nobuo Uematsu, the composer responsible for the best Final Fantasy soundtracks, including 6, 7, 8, and 9, sadly only contributed the ending song, Kiss Me Goodbye.
Oh, at least it's a lovely song.
'Tis that. So, what else do we need to discuss? Oh yes, the game's art style. The art team for Final Fantasy XII, led by art directors Hideo Minaba and Isamu Kurari and Isamu Kamiko. My apologies for butchering these names. Led by art directors Hideo Minaba and a chap called Isamu, visited Turkey in development, and it greatly inspired the game's Mediterranean-style setting. You'll also find styles and decoration reminiscent of India, and, bizarrely, New York City in the game.
Oh, what elements were inspired by New York City?
The Spider-Man and King Kong cameos, of course.
Oh, there's cameos from Spider-Man and King Kong in Final Fantasy XII?
No, because that would be fucking ridiculous. I don't know what elements were taken from New York. I'm just reading what it says here. The buildings, maybe the ships. I have no bloody idea. Let's just move on, otherwise we'll still be here next week. So, let's talk a little about the character designs. Again, we'll talk about this more later, but the decision to make this game's characters look similar to those in Vagrant Story seems deliberate.
Oh, I love that game.
As do I, Bertram. Now, Bosch was the first character designed for Final Fantasy XII, and the developers considered him the hero of the story at the time. Though, Vaan and Penelo were added last and became the heroes in the final version of the plot. The developers were motivated by the commercial failure of Vagrant Story, which featured a strong man in his prime as the protagonist, and switched the focus to a younger protagonist in this as a result. Now, Van's early designs were described as effeminate, but with the casting of Koei Takeda as his voice and motion capture actor, Vaan became less feminine and more active, upbeat, bright, and in the throes of puberty. Now, comments were made about the similarity between character designer Akihiko Yoshida's creations and those of Tetsuya Nomura, another Square Enix character designer.
Isn't Tetsuya Nomura the chap who delivered our lunch this afternoon?
He is indeed. He's also the mastermind behind the Kingdom Hearts games and my favorite Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy 15.
Oh, you do love Final Fantasy 15.
If it was allowed, I would court then marry that game. And I'd never cheat on it either. Well, maybe with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but shh! That'll be our little secret, Bertram. Final Fantasy XII has 6 main playable characters. Now, most of the time you play as Barn, an energetic orphan who dreams of becoming a sky pirate.
Oh, I had a dream about my mother breastfeeding me.
That's nice. Anyway, we also play as Princess Ash, the future queen of Dalmasca, who lost her father and husband in the Arcadian invasion. But fear not, dear viewer, I can confirm that they consummated the marriage before his violent death.
How do you know? Were you there?
Yes.
Oh.
Don't worry, Bertram. I got the whole thing on video. We'll watch it later. Haha. Maybe you can make those hot dog things I enjoy. Next, we have Bosch, a disgraced knight of Dalmasca, charged with treason for slaying the king. Naughty, naughty. Baltier, a gentlemanly sky pirate. Fran, Baltier's partner and a Viera exile, whose knowledge extends to legends and myths. And last and most definitely least, we have Penelo, Van's childhood friend. Now, occasionally, you'll be joined by guests who fight alongside your party, but like a stubborn prostitute in a chicken costume, you have no say in what they do.
What?
You'll be joined by Vossler, a Dalmascan knight and member of the Resistance, and occasionally Larsa, a charismatic seeker of peace. He is also the younger brother of this game's main villain, Vayne, a military genius. He's not Final Fantasy's best villain, but he does make for an epic multi-phase boss fight at the end of the game. Speaking of villains, like my own family, there's quite a few evil bastards to be found here. We've already mentioned Vayne, but we also have the sinister Judge Magisters, upholders of Arcadian law, who protect House Solidor and do everything that Vayne asks.
What if he asked him to wipe his touche after he uses the toilet?
Then they would have to do it.
What if he asked him to prepare for him a meal of turkey with a side of macaroni and 1,234 Brussels sprouts?
Then they would have to do it.
What if he asked him to say that Redfall is 2023's Game of the Year?
Oh, I don't think you convince anyone to do that. Now, alongside Vayne and the judges, we also have Dr. Sid, a prominent researcher who is obsessed with nethicite, a form of magicite that blows things up and stuff. The man is also quite insane. Apparently, this happened because he played the first hour of Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII, and then neglected to play the rest of the game. Oh, we'll be talking about that game on the channel very soon, dear viewers, so you can look forward to that. Now, other characters you'll encounter on your journey through Final Fantasy XII to kick Vane's ass and prevent an all-out war include Emperor Gramis, an old man who goes and gets himself murdered.
Oh, I did that once.
No, you didn't. We also have Marquis Halim Ondor I, the game's narrator and owner of a funny accent. We also have Redis, a sky pirate and former judge. Alcid Margrace, a prince who sounds an awful lot like Antonio Banderas. And Vena, who is a ghost, demon, supernatural thing that controls the villains of Final Fantasy XII.
Oh, I do like Antonio Banderas.
Ha! Who doesn't? You know, I don't think I can be bothered talking about the gameplay for this game, so instead of doing that, how about we talk about the healing properties of heroin?
I don't think that's a good idea.
No, probably not. What about the importance of washing your tinky?
No, I would just go with the gameplay.
Oh, okay then, spoil sport. You'll explore Ivalice on foot, by chocobo, or by airship. As you move through the open world, you'll fight enemies, and through doing this, you'll level up and earn license points. You can then use these license points on your character's license board. Now, the license board is an array of panels that contain licenses, which allow a character to perform certain actions, to use a magic, technique, or certain piece of equipment. The character must obtain its corresponding license by spending the required amount of LP. License points. Now, license points are earned in battle, along with experience points. Like the spear grid in Final Fantasy X, all characters may obtain all licenses on the board, but each quickening and Esper license may only be activated by a single character.
What's an Esper?
Oh, sorry. Espers are this game's version of summons. So, after defeating an Esper in combat, the player will be able to summon it to the battlefield. Similar to Final Fantasy X, the summoned creatures become active participants in battle, as opposed to the one-and-done cinematic attacks seen in previous games in the series. Unlike Final Fantasy X, however, the summoner remains an active member in the fight, able to attack and cast support magic, instead of leaving the party or standing idle twiddling their thumbs while the summoned creature fights. An Esper will leave the battle if either the summoner or itself is knocked out, its time limit expires, or it executes its special attack. You can't control Espers directly. They act dependent on certain hidden gambits.
What are gambits?
Oh, sorry. The gambit system is something new introduced in Final Fantasy XII. It essentially allows the player to program each character to perform certain commands in battle in response to specified conditions. Using gambits, the player may set reactions to different stimuli for each character.
Oh, I like that word, stimuli. Sorry. Continue.
Yes. Each gambit consists of 3 parts: a target, an action, and a priority. The target specifies which ally or foe to act on, and the condition for applying the action. So, for example, the target, ally, HP less than 70%, causes the character to target any ally whose hit points have fallen below 70%. Understood?
Not really.
Now, the action is the command to be performed on the target. The priority determines which gambit to perform when multiple gambits are triggered. Understand?
No.
It's okay, Bertram. Neither do I. In a nutshell, it's just a fancy way to control how your party functions in battle. I think. Now, what else can I tell you about the combat? Oh, yes. Though you only control one party member in battle, your compatriots are controlled by the game's AI, you can change to any party member at pretty much any time during the battle, and if, God forbid, your 3 party members die or collapse from exhaustion after eating too many Twinkies, you can swap in your other 3 party members to replace them.
Has anyone ever collapsed from eating too many Twinkies?
I got no bloody idea. Just sounded funny in my head. I don't even know what the hell a Twinkie is. Oh, did I explain what quickenings are?
No, I don't think so.
Well, quickenings are basically Final Fantasy XII's version of limit breaks.
Oh!
So you explore, get into fights, use quickenings and attacks and abilities to fuck your enemies up. And upon finishing the battle, you earn experience points, skill, and loot that you can sell at shops to buy new weapons, accessories, and breast enlargements. Maybe not that last one. Final Fantasy XII is set within the land of Ivalice, during an age when magic was commonplace and airships dominated the skies.
When was this?
Last Tuesday.
Oh!
Ivalice is divided into 3 incontinents.
I think you mean continents.
Yes. Ivalice is divided into 3 continents, those being Ordalia, Valendia, and Careworn. Ordalia is where the Rosarian Empire makes its home. Valendia is the home of Imperial Arcadia, where lush highlands dot the landscape. Central to the story of Final Fantasy XII is Dalmasca, a small kingdom located in the middle of the Gautian Peninsula of Ordalia. And you spend the whole game going through all of these continents, exploring dungeons and fighting enemies.
Oh, the world in this game is huge.
So is your mother. What's your point, Bertram?
No point. I was just observing.
Well, why don't you observe the kitchen as you fetch me a coffee?
Yes, dickhead.
What was that?
I said, yes, sir.
So, like I already said, the design of Iblis was heavily influenced by Mediterranean countries, and this is reflected in the game's architecture.
What does architecture mean?
You know, the cities, the buildings, the pubs, the whorehouses, the toilets. All of this is architecture.
Oh!
So, the story for Final Fantasy XII is as follows. In Dalmasca's capital city of Rabanastra, Princess Ashelia of Dalmasca and Prince Wrestler of Nabradia have just wed, as the Arcadian Empire invades the two countries. Wrestler is killed in the war. The city of Nabudis is destroyed in a single explosion, and the Dalmascan king Ramingas is assassinated moments after signing a treaty of surrender. Marquis Ondor announces that the assassin was Dalmascan Captain Bosch, who has been sentenced to death, and that Princess Ash has committed suicide.
Oh my!
Yes. 2 years later, Van, a Rabanastra street urchin, ignores his friend Penello's objections and infiltrates the palace during a dinner celebrating the appointment of Arcadian Prince Vane Solidor as counsel. In the treasury, he finds a piece of magicite, a powerful magical crystal. He is discovered by Baltier and Fran, a pair of sky pirates looking for the same magicite. The three escape as Dalmascan resistance forces assault the palace, and in the sewers they meet the resistance leader, Amalia, before being captured by Arcadian forces. In the dungeons, they meet Bosch, who was imprisoned but not killed, and who states his evil twin brother Gabranth was the one to kill the king.
Oh, it's like a soap opera.
Indeed. So, the four then escape together back to Rabanastra. There, they discover Penello has been kidnapped and taken to the floating city of Bujaba. In Bujaba, they meet Lamont, a curious boy who is Bane's younger brother Lassa in disguise. And by in disguise, he is wearing a pair of glasses and a false mustache.
Oh, really?
No, haha, not really. Though I wish he was wearing a pair of glasses and a false mustache. Would have been very amusing. Now, after they rescue Penello, Bash confronts the Marquis over his lies. But the party is captured and detained aboard the Arcadian airship Leviathan, headed by Judge Geese. On the Leviathan, the party is reunited with Amalia, who is revealed to actually be Princess Ash. Now, Geese takes the magicite, which is revealed to be a royal Dalmascan artifact, de-affected magicite. The party escapes, but as Ash had planned to use the magicite as proof that she was the princess, the group journeys to collect another of the pieces of nethicite, the Dawn Shard. They are again captured by Geese when he tries to use the Dawn Shard in the Leviathan rather than the manufactured, that means artificially made, magicite it normally uses. his entire airship fleet is destroyed in a mirror of the destruction of Nabadis, and the party flees again. They encounter Larsa, who seeks a peace treaty between Dalmasca and the Empire. The group and Larsa go to Mount Bur-Omeses to seek the Grand Kiltius Anastasis, Ivalice's religious leader, and beg his approval of Ash as Queen of Dalmasca. There, they also meet Al-Cid Magres, who is in talks with Larsa to avert a war between Rosaria and Arcadia. Their plans are curtailed when Anastasis is killed by Arcadia, and soon afterwards the Arcadian Emperor Gramis dies and Vane ascends the throne. The party journeys to Arcadia, where they discover Dr. Cid, the creator of manufactured magicite, who directs them to go to Girovagan to find the source of nephesite. In Girovagan, Ash encounters the makers of nephesite, the immortal Orcuria, who pull the strings of history. They give her the treaty blades to cut new pieces from the Suncrist, the source of all nephesite and its power. She learns that Venat, one of the Orcuria, has defected to put the reins of history back in the hands of man, manipulating Vane in his quest to conquer Iblis, and leading Cid to create manufactured magicite to reduce the relative power of the Orcuria. Ash and the party journey to the Suncrist, where she decides not to take her revenge by following the Orcuria's wishes, but instead destroys the Suncrist. The party defeats Grabronth, who reveals that he killed King Raminas and destroys the crystal. Al-Cid tells them that the Dalmascan resistance led by Ondor is about to fight Arcadia in Rabanasta. But the Arcadian forces now include the Sky Fortress Bahamut. They infiltrate the Bahamut and find Larsa failing to dissuade his brother Vane from his plans for war. They defeat Vane and Vanar, and Ash and Larsa announce the end of the conflict to the battlefield. Larsa becomes the Arcadian Emperor, and Ash the Queen of Dalmasca. Bash replaces his brother Gabranth as Larsa's protector. Van and Penelo fly an airship to meet Voltaire and Fran for another adventure. Understood, Bertram?
No, not really. Quite a complicated plot.
Yes, 'tis that. I played the game hundreds of times. I still don't have a bloody clue what's going on. Final Fantasy XII, released in 2006 for the PlayStation 2 to critical acclaim. It would be followed by a direct sequel called Remnant of Wings or some such bollocks, and that was released for the Nintendo DS in 2007. And in 2017, we would get Final Fantasy XII, The Zodiac Age, a high-definition remaster of the exclusive Japanese International Zodiac Job System version of Final Fantasy XII for the PlayStation 4. The remaster was largely developed by Virtuos, who previously developed the Final Fantasy X/X2 HD remaster. Final Fantasy XII Zodiac Age would release for PC in 2018 and for the Nintendo Switch and Xbox One in 2019. Ha ha! Sucks to be you, Nintendo and Xbox fanboys! Now if you haven't already, then I implore you to buy, download, steal, or sell your body to get your hands on Final Fantasy XII. And play it, goddammit! So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our retrospective for Final Fantasy XII. If you enjoyed this little video of ours, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then feel free to give me a thumbs down. Please remember there's already a review and a full playthrough for Final Fantasy XII on the channel, so go and watch them right bloody now. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Say goodbye, Bertram.
Goodbye, Bertram.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, joined once again by my faithful manservant / Bucktotem Bertram. Say hello, Bertram.
Hello, Bertram.
And this is our retrospective for Final Fantasy XIII. So, dear viewer, don't you dare forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Final Fantasy XIII is a role-playing video game developed and published by Square Enix for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2010.
Didn't it release in Japan in 2009?
Oh, fine. Final Fantasy XIII is a role-playing video game developed and published by Square Enix for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2009. A year I remember fondly as the year I wandered into Square Enix headquarters and demanded that they remake Chrono Trigger for the PlayStation 3 and put myself in charge of the whole production.
And what did they say?
Well, I didn't have my hearing aid in that day, but I think I heard something about my anus and a cactus.
Oh my!
Yes, so rude. Anyway, I'm still holding out.
For a hero? Haha!
No, that will get a Chrono Trigger remake someday.
Oh!
But we're not here to talk about Chrono Trigger. We're here to talk about one of my all-time favorite Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy XIII. So, Final Fantasy XIII takes place in the fictional floating world of Cocoon, whose government, the Sanctum, is ordering a purge of civilians who have supposedly come into contact with Pulse, the much-feared world below. Our main character this time is Lightning, also known as the most badass woman since Ellen Ripley caught Sarah Connor trying to steal her vibrator and declared, "Get away from her, you bitch!" Lightning is on a quest to save her sister, who has been recently branded by one of those Pulse bastards. Lightning is soon joined by a band of allies, and together they also become marked by the same Pulse creature bastard. And thus, our story begins.
I didn't understand a word of what you just said.
That's because you are stupid, Bertram.
Oh!
Now, before we get into the development of Final Fantasy XIII, just let me make you aware, dear viewer, that I am most definitely going to butcher the pronunciation of some of the names here. My apologies in advance. And number 2, 99.8% of the facts I'm about to share with you are most likely true. The other 0.2% are complete and utter bollocks and are made up by yours truly. Haha, enjoy. Development for Final Fantasy XIII began in February 2004, shortly after the release of Final Fantasy X2 International and Last Mission in Japan.
What the hell is Final Fantasy X2 International plus Last Mission?
Basically, an enhanced version of Final Fantasy X2 with extra content.
Oh!
Do you remember Final Fantasy X2?
Is that the Final Fantasy game with the J-pop songs?
It is.
Didn't I catch you singing along with it?
You did.
I never did figure out why you had no clothes on while you were doing it.
Because I was in the shower.
What? You're supposed to take your clothes off in the shower?
Shut up, Bertram. The team for Final Fantasy XIII included several developers who had worked on previous installments in the series, including director Motomo Toriyama, who had worked on Final Fantasy X and X-2. Producer Yoshinori Kitase, who had worked on 5 through 8 and was the producer for 10 and 10-2. Main character designer Tetsuya Nomura once again returned after having designed the characters for 7, 8, 10 and 10-2. And battle system director Toshiro Tsushida reprised his role from Final Fantasy X. Now, the music was composed by Masashi Hamazu, who previously worked on Final Fantasy X and was the main composer for Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy XIII was the first main series Final Fantasy game to not include any compositions by original series composer Nobuo Uematsu. Although Uematsu was originally announced to compose the main theme of the game, this role was taken over by Hamazu after Uematsu signed on to compose the soundtrack for Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh, I love Final Fantasy XIV.
No one cares what you love, Bertram.
That's not true. Someone once said I was the best thing about this channel.
And, who said that? Your mother?
Yes?
Ha! I rest my case. Final Fantasy XIII was conceived to be the ultimate single-player RPG. Being the first Final Fantasy game for the PlayStation 3, the development team's internal goal was for the game to have the same gameplay and craftsmanship impact that Final Fantasy 7 and 10 had as the first games of the series on their respective consoles.
And did it?
I think so. Final Fantasy XIII for me was a fantastic evolution of the series, and I only wish more people agreed with my sentiments.
Oh, no one ever agrees with you. Well, Maybe except for crazy people.
You are too kind, Bertram.
I was insulting you.
I know that! I was being sarcastic, you moron!
Oh!
Anyway, let's discuss the development of Final Fantasy XIII in detail. Early in development, it was referred to internally at Square Enix by the codename Colors World. Between 2004 and 2005, Motomo Toriyama and Kazushige Nojima conceived ideas for the plot. Nojima thought up the crystal mythology that became the basis for the Fabula Nova Crystallis series, including concepts such as the Fal Sea and La Sea.
What the hell is the Fabula Nova Crystallis series?
Well, in a nutshell, it is 7 Final Fantasy games that basically share the same mythology. So we have 13, its 2 sequels, Final Fantasy Type 0, Final Fantasy 15, and 2 mobile games. Understood?
Understood. Please, continue.
What the hell was I even talking about before? Oh, yes. Toriyama created a story based on this mythology. In March 2006, lead scenario writer Daisuke Watanabe joined the Final Fantasy XIII team. Toriyama gave him a rough outline of the first 8 chapters, which included several cornerstone scenes that needed to be kept, like when party members were separated or reunited or went to the toilet together holding hands. He told Watanabe what he wanted to express with the scenario and asked him to flesh out the story and to strengthen how the points in his outline connected. For example, Toriyama would write, "Lightning touches herself provocatively," or "Vanille swallows a chocolate bar without taking it out of the wrapper," or "Snow and Hope reconcile." Watanabe then had to decide how the scenes with this reconciliation would play out, then write the scenario that way. To emphasize what the story was trying to express, Watanabe adjusted the personalities Toriyama had given to each character. For example, Toriyama wrote that Lightning was a reliable and calm leader type, but Watanabe would change that to more accurately show the confusion and unease after the protagonist transform into Lassie.
What the hell is a Lassie?
We'll get to that. Are you going to keep interrupting me during this, Bertram? If you are, I might have to ask you to leave the room.
So you can masturbate?
Yes. I mean, no. So you don't distract me. This video is going to be long enough already without me having to explain every single little thing to you.
Oh, okie dokie.
Okie dokie, you're going to leave the room, or okie dokie, you're going to stop interrupting me.
Okie dokie, what was the question again?
Oh, never mind. Just sit there and be quiet. Damn it, I forgot what I was saying. Oh yes. Toriyama has said that one of the storytelling challenges he faced writing Final Fantasy XIII was dealing with the despair of the characters and the many points at which they are seemingly cornered. He mentioned the scene where Zaz tries to commit suicide as one such example, although Toriyama felt it was almost a little too dark. He wanted to include something like it in the game.
Didn't someone try to commit suicide in another Final Fantasy game?
Well remembered, Bertram. Celeste in Final Fantasy VI tried to commit suicide when she lost her favorite vibrator. Or some such nonsense. Now, to contrast the darker elements in Final Fantasy XIII's story, Toriyama added plenty of light-hearted elements like Zaz's Chocobo chick.
Oh, so cute.
Thank you, Bertram. Haha.
I meant the Chocobo chick.
Oh, I know that. Now, originally, Final Fantasy XIII was intended to be released on the PlayStation 2. But in May 2005, after the positive reception to the tech demo of Final Fantasy VII, the team moved the game to the PlayStation 3.
What tech demo?
Basically, they remade the opening of Final Fantasy VII, you know, to show off the power of the PlayStation 3.
Oh!
It was very good, and got me very excited for a potential Final Fantasy VII remake. I had an erection and everything. But sadly, we wouldn't get that remake until 2020. But boy oh boy was it worth the wait. Love that bloody game. Anyway, back to Final Fantasy XIII. The game was developed using the new Crystal Tools engine, a 7th generation multi-platform game engine created by Square Enix for its next generation games. Square Enix believed that developing a new engine would speed up development time later in the project. But little did they know that it actually had the opposite effect.
Oh, morons.
Pot, kettle, black. Anyway, Final Fantasy XIII was first shown at the 2006 E3 convention. The trailer shown was an artistic concept that did not represent the final concept for the game, since at the time there was no playable form of the game. Announced alongside the game was Final Fantasy Versus 13, later retitled as Final Fantasy 15, and the PlayStation Portable game Final Fantasy Type 0, originally titled Final Fantasy Agito 13. Now these would be the first games in the Fabula Nova Crystallis Final Fantasy series that I've already spoken about.
Do you think we'll ever get to go to E3?
Well, considering that E3 is pretty much as dead as Kevin Spacey's career at this point, no, I don't think we'll ever go to E3.
Oh!
It's okay, Bertram. We'll take over YouTube one day, so you can just look forward to that.
Oh, yay!
Yes, haha. Like a lot of games, Final Fantasy XIII has a wealth of cut content. Art director Isamu Can't Say His Surname revealed that many locations such as Lightning's home were left out of the final version of the game due to concerns about the game's length. Can't Say His Surname said the content they cut was, in itself, enough to make another game. Another example of cuts is that Final Fantasy XIII, unlike previous titles in the series, includes no explorable town areas. Toriyama said in an interview that the team was unable to make them as graphically appealing as the rest of the game and chose to eliminate them. Toriyama also said that he intended to have a piece of downloadable content available for the game that would include a new area, weapons, and quests, but was forced to cut it as well due to quality concerns so late in the project and difficulties with developing Final Fantasy XIII for not just the PlayStation 3, but the bloody Xbox 360 as well.
Oh, don't say it like that. You love the Xbox, really?
I suppose. There are 6 main playable characters in Final Fantasy XIII. Our main protagonist this time is Lightning, a former soldier and sister of Sarah, who we'll talk about in a moment. Toriyama wanted Lightning to be a new type of female character, with an athletic body and a less feminine nature than some of the previous female characters in the series.
Less feminine? What does that mean?
Basically, it means she doesn't walk around with her bazookas on show for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to leer at.
Oh!
Toriyama told character designer Tetsuya Nomura to make Lightning strong and beautiful, and she was intended to be reminiscent of Final Fantasy VII's Cloud Strife. Next we have Snow Villiers, voiced by the fantastic Troy Baker. Snow is Sarah's fiancé and leader of Nora, a paramilitary group. We also have Vanille, the game's narrator, and an exile who was later revealed to be a lessee from Pulse. Saz Catsroy, a civilian pilot and father to a young boy Dash. Hope Estine, a young boy. And finally Fang, a lessee from Pulse, who was working with the Sanctum's cavalry branch. Now Fang was initially conceived to be a male character, but her gender was changed to coincide with the updated character designs during the latter part of development. Other characters you'll encounter during Final Fantasy XIII are our main villain, Gallant Geisley, the ruler of the Sanctum, Sid Raids, a Sanctum Brigadier General in the cavalry who does not trust the government, and last but not least, we have Sarah Farron, Lightning's younger sister and Snow's fiancée. Now we'll talk a lot more about Sarah in our retrospective for Final Fantasy XIII too. So, instead of talking about the gameplay for Final Fantasy XIII, I thought instead I would talk about a hermit I found living in my garden shed.
Really?
No, not really. We're actually going to talk about the gameplay for Final Fantasy XIII. So, like all the other Final Fantasy games, you'll run through the world getting into fights, upgrading characters, buying weapons, upgrading weapons, taking regular toilet breaks, blah blah blah-diddy blah. Like Final Fantasy XII, enemies are visible at all times and can be approached or avoided by the player. When the player's character touches an enemy, the screen transitions from the regular map to a separate battle screen, similar to those used in previous Final Fantasy games. Now, the battles in this game are a variation of the traditional active time battle system, first featured in Final Fantasy IV. Unlike previous games in the series, the player only controls the lead character, while the remaining two characters are controlled by the game's artificial intelligence. During battle, the player selects an action from the menu such as attack, magic, item, and each action requires a specific number of slots on the ATB bar, which refills in real time to a set maximum number. This total size gradually increases throughout the game from 2 to 6. The paradigm system allows the player to program paradigms sizing which the active specific that akin to the job system of previous games. The player can only choose from a limited stock of pams set up outside of battle, limiting the possible combinations of roles available. This is the only way of directing AI-controlled party members. The roles consist of Commando, dealing physical damage, Ravager, using elemental magic, Medic, a role which can heal and remove negative status ailments, Synergist, which uses magic to strengthen allies by giving positive statuses, Saboteur, which uses magic to weaken enemies by inflicting negative statuses, and Sentinel, which has protective abilities and may take on enemy focus. In addition to a health bar, each enemy has a stagger bar, or chain bonus, indicating with a percentage starting at 100 the strength of attacks dealt by the player. When the chain bonus reaches an amount specific to the kind of enemy, they are staggered. Stagger increases damage massively by providing an instant boost to the chain bonus, and may launch the enemy into the air, and or make the enemy shit their pants. Now, stagger is increased by a large amount by magic-based attacks, but will fall unless sustained by physical attacks. So in a nutshell, have one of your commandos attacking, at the same time have a Ravager attacking, and that should build up the stagger bar. See? Each leader or controlled character can summon a specific Eidolon into battle. Now, these summoned creatures include CD staples Odin, Shiva, Alexander, and Bahamut, alongside some newcomers. Now, when summoned, the Eidolon stays in combat, while the characters accompanying the summoner leave the party. While an Eidolon is summoned, the player can trigger a feature called Gestalt Mode, in which the Eidolon transforms into a different form, just like the Transformers, and performs different attacks while the summoning character rides them, and not in the dirty way. Get your mind out of the gutter. But how do you upgrade your characters in this game? I'm so glad you asked, dear viewer.
I didn't hear anything.
Shut up, Bertram. The Crystarium is a leveling system consisting of 6 crystals and resembles the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X. Each crystal in the Crystarium represents one of the 6 roles and is divided into 10 levels. Now, each level contains various nodes that supply bonuses to health, strength, or magic, or provide new abilities and accessory slots. These nodes are connected by a semi-linear path. The player may advance down the path by acquiring Crystarium points, which are awarded after defeating enemies. Basically, they're experience points. They're just not called experience points because you have to change the name of everything in every single new Final Fantasy game. So in one Final Fantasy game it's called experience points, now it's called Crystarium points, or something's called a summon, but it's actually called an Eidolon in this. You understand. Now, the full Crystarium is not available to the player at the beginning of the game. At specific points in the game's plot, usually after boss fights, the player gains access to new crystals or levels. Understood?
No.
I wasn't asking you. I was asking that chap standing outside our window.
Oh!
Understood? Yeah?
Who the hell is that?
I don't know, Bertram. I think he's a peeping Tom.
Oh!
Final Fantasy XIII is set on the world of Grand Pulse.
Grand Pulse?
No, not Grand Pulse, Gran Pulse. Someone at Square Enix forgot the D. You'll be glad to hear he was fired and then drank himself to death in a Final Fantasy themed tea house in Tokyo.
Is that true?
Sure, why not? Central to Final Fantasy XIII's story is Cocoon, a massive artificial sphere that floats above Pulse's surface and is ruled by the Sanctum, a theocratic government.
What does theocratic mean?
I don't know. Evil? Bad? Who cares? The two worlds are controlled by Foul Sea, mechanical beings with godlike power. The Cocoon Foul Sea are responsible for keeping Cocoon floating, as well as providing light and water to the people that live inside. Each Foul Sea handles a specific task. The Foul Sea have the capability of marking the humans that live in Pulse and Cocoon as their servants. These servants, called l'Cie, are branded with a symbol representing either Pulse or Cocoon, and are given a focus, a task to complete. If the l'Cie completes their task in time, they are transformed to crystal, and according to legend, gain eternal life. Otherwise, they become mindless monsters called Seath. The l'Cie are not explicitly told their focus, but are instead given visions that they must interpret.
What's your focus, OCG?
To get through this retrospective without throwing you out of the window. Again? Anyway, several hundred years before the events of Final Fantasy XIII, a battle known as the War of Transgression took place between Pulse and Cocoon. During the battle, l'Cie from Pulse attacked and ripped a large hole in Cocoon. Eventually, the l'Cie completed their focus and were turned to crystal. The hole was patched with material lifted from Pulse, and Cocoon's citizens have since lived in fear of another invasion. This sphere is used by the Sanctum to remain in power. The Sanctum oversees two military branches, the Guardian Corps, responsible for keeping order on Cocoon, and the Public Security and Intelligence Command, also known as PSICOM. The special forces in charge of dealing with any threat related to Pulse. The Foul Sea, given the humans advanced technology, including flying airships and mechanical creatures, and a form of magic also exists. This magic is normally only accessible to La Sea, Foul Sea, and various monsters in Cocoon and Pulse, though distilled chemical forms can be used by normal humans through the use of mana drives. And before you ask, Bertram, no, I don't know what a mana drive is.
Actually, I was just going to ask if I could go to the toilet.
Oh, well, yes, of course. Just ignore the dead body in the bath.
Okie dokie. Wait, what?
Unlike previous games in the series, which were more inspired by Asian locations and culture, Final Fantasy XIII was intended by the art team to be reminiscent of the United States. Pulse was based on landscape photographs the team took from across the country, and Cocoon was intended to be a melting pot of different ethnicities. The setting was also given a science fiction aesthetic to make it stand out more from other entries in the series. So here's a recap of the whole story for Final Fantasy XIII, which may or may not be plagiarized from Wikipedia. In Cocoon, the citizens of the town of Bodom are being evicted or purged after coming in contact with something from Pulse. Over the course of the game, the player is shown flashbacks of the events of the previous 13 days, which began when a foul sea from Pulse was discovered near Bodom. Lightning's sister Sarah had found the foul sea from Pulse and had been changed into a lassie by it. Lightning and Zaz derail a purge train bound for Pulse in an attempt to save Sarah. As Snow leads his resistance group Nora to rescue the purge exiles, several of them are killed. Heading to the Foul Sea, Anima to save Sarah, Snow is joined by two of the exiles, Hope and Vanille. The two parties meet at the Foul Sea and find Sarah just as she turns to crystal. Anima then brands them as lassie, and they are cast out into a different part of Cocoon. During this transformation, the newly crested lassie all have the same vision, a monster called Ragnarok. Arguing over the ambiguous nature of the dreamed focus, the party finds Sarah in her crystallized form. Snow remains with her as the others leave. Snow meets Sid and Fang, two members of the cavalry, after he is captured and detained aboard the airship Lindblom. Meanwhile, the others flee from Psycom before getting separated by an airstrike. Hope and Lightning travel to Palom Polum, while Zaz and Vanille travel to Nautilus. In Lightning's scenario, she unintentionally supports Hope's goal of killing Snow to avenge his mother's death. In Vanille's scenario, Zaz discusses how his son Dash was turned into a lassie by a Cocoon Foul Sea and was taken by Psycom to discover his focus. In Palom Polum, Lightning attempts to dissuade Hope from going through with his revenge and meets Snow and Fang. Fang reveals that she and Vanille were lassie from Pulse, who were turned into crystals. They were turned back into humans 13 days earlier, sparking the purge. Hope attempts to murder Snow, but after being rescued during an airstrike, he decides not to go through with it. The four then flee the city with Sid's aid. In Nautilus, Vanille reveals herself to Zaz as a lessee from Pulse, and indirectly is the reason that Daj was turned into a lessee. Zaz and Vanille are then captured and detained on board the airship Palamecia. On the Palamecia, the other members of the party reunite with Vanille and Zaz before they confront Gallant Daisley, the Sanctum's Primarch, who is the Cocoon Foul Sea ruler, Bartandalus, in disguise. Bartandalus tells the party that their focus is to transform into the beast Ragnarok and slay the sleeping Foul Sea Orphan, who keeps Cocoon afloat above Pulse. Slaying Orphan will result in the destruction of Cocoon. The party flees and learns from Sid that the Foul Sea believe that Cocoon's destruction will summon the Maker, the creator of the worlds. The Foul Sea cannot harm Orphan themselves. Vanille and Fang revealed to the party that they were involved in the War of Transgression centuries earlier, and that their focus then had been the same, to transform into Ragnarok and attempt to destroy Orphan. The party flies away to Pulse and journeys to Oerba, Vanille and Fang's hometown, where they hope to learn how to remove the lessee marks. The town is deserted, and they find no living people on the surface. The party is unsuccessful in removing their marks, and Bartandalus confronts them again. The party learns that Bartandalus has made Sid the new Primarch to create chaos in Cocoon, to force the cavalry to attack Sid and Orphan in a coup d'etat. The party infiltrates Cocoon and heads towards Orphan, but soon discover that the cavalry have been turned into Seath. The party defeats Bartandalus, but Orphan awakens and merges with Bartandalus, then compels Fang to finish her focus as Ragnarok, while the others are seemingly transformed into Seath. The party reappears in human form, preventing Fang from transforming. The party then defeats Orphan and escapes Cocoon, which is now falling towards Pulse. As the rest of the party turns to Crystal for completing their focus, Vanille and Fang remain on Cocoon and transform into Ragnarok together to prevent a collision between Cocoon and Pulse. The rest of the party awaken from their crystallization on Pulse and find their lessee brands gone. Lightning, Hope, Snow, and Zaz reunite with Sarah and Dash. Here endeth the story. Final Fantasy XIII released to mostly positive reviews in 2010.
2009 in Japan.
2009 in Japan. It would be followed by two sequels, one in 2011 and another in 2013. Final Fantasy XIII is one of my favorite games in the series, so if you haven't already, then I implore you to buy, download, steal, or sell your grandmother to get your hands on Final Fantasy XIII and play it, goddammit! So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our retrospective for Final Fantasy XIII. If you enjoyed this little video of ours, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then, feel free to give me a thumbs down. please don't forget that there's a full review and a full playthrough with commentary by yours truly for this game on the channel, so go and watch them. But remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Say goodbye, Bertram.
Goodbye, Bertram.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Obsessive Compulsive Gaming. I am the Obsessive Compulsive Gamer, joined once again by my faithful manservant slash bucktotem Bertram. Say hello, Bertram.
Hello, Bertram.
And this is our retrospective for Final Fantasy 13-2. So, dear viewer, don't you dare forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Final Fantasy 13-2 is another RPG from Square Enix. But that's not all, folks. It's also a shock horror Final Fantasy game. But not only that, a direct sequel.
Oh, I think I just wet myself.
There's tissues under my bed. Not for any particular reason, of course. Sometimes I need to blow my penis. I mean nose. Sometimes I need to blow my nose during the night. Yes. Final Fantasy 13-2 was released in 2012 for the...
It says here that it was released in 2011 in Japan.
Oh, damn it! Final Fantasy 13-2 was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in 2011. A year I remember fondly as the year I was struck by lightning.
Were you standing outside during a storm?
No, lightning actually punched me in the face.
Oh, you mean the attractive protagonist of Final Fantasy 13, not Lightning.
Yes?
Why did she hit you?
Well, I told her that Cloud Strife looks better in a dress than she does.
Oh.
Anyway, enough about that. Final Fantasy 13 is the second game in the Fabula Nova Crystallis series of games. And before you bloody ask me what that is, Bertram, it is 7 Final Fantasy games that kind of, sort of share the same mythology about crystals or some such nonsense.
I knew that. You talked about it in the Final Fantasy 13 retrospective.
So I did. So, at the beginning of Final Fantasy 13-2, Lightning, confirmed man-beater and protagonist of the original game, has disappeared into an unknown world. So her younger and far less attractive sister, Sarah Farin, and No Christ journey through time in an attempt to find her.
Who the hell is No Christ?
Stay tuned and you'll find out, Bertram. Development for Final Fantasy 13-2 began in early 2010 and lasted for around a year and a half.
Oh, that's not very long.
Neither is this game, Bertram. And let's not forget they were probably able to reuse use a lot of character models, locations, and asses.
I think you mean assets?
Yes. Assets. And they had help on this game. Square Enix called upon TriAce to assist with the game's design, art, and programming.
Who the hell is TriAce?
How the hell would I know? I presume a company that helps with game design, art, and programming.
Do you know anything?
I know that if you interrupt me one more time, I'm going to throw you out of the window. Right, I've just looked up TriAce, and according to this less than reputable website, TriAce is a type of pornography starring triplets. No, wait. That's something else. TriAce. So, apparently, they are a Japanese game developer. Oh, they made Resonance of Fate. That game has Nolan North in it. And it's harder than the cock of Midas.
What's harder than the cock of Midas? Nolan North or Resonance of Fate?
Resonance of Fate. Well, until they tell Nolan North that they are developing Uncharted 5. Haha. So, after the less than stellar reviews for Final Fantasy XIII, the plan for Final Fantasy XIII-2 was to exceed that game in every way.
Oh, Final Fantasy XIII is 50 hours of hallways.
I don't recall asking for your opinion, Bertram. And it's not 50 hours of hallways. It's more like 40 hours.
And is Final Fantasy XIII-2 a better game?
You'll have to watch my review to get the answer to that, Bertram. In fact, you there. Yes, you watching this retrospective. I see you touching yourself inappropriately. Have you watched my review for Final Fantasy XIII-2 yet? And why the hell not? Oh, I see. Being breastfed, you say? Aren't you 35? Oh, I see. Well, my congratulations to you and your mother. I didn't think it was legal to marry your own mother, but what do I know? Bertram said I don't know anything. Anyway, when you get a moment, go and watch my review. It's hilarious. Haha. Now, what was I talking about before we, oh yes, the development. So, as a response to the wankers who said that Final Fantasy XIII was too linear, didn't have enough towns and exploration, didn't have enough side quests, Final Fantasy XIII-2 says, "Hold my chocobo. You want towns? Here you go. You want a cornucopia of side quests? Well, I don't know what cornucopia means, but here you are. You want non-linear exploration? Take it! Right, I'll take my chocobo back now. Why is he crying? What did you do to my chocobo, you sick bastard?
But does all of that make Final Fantasy XIII-2 better than Final Fantasy XIII?
I told you, Bertram, you have to watch my review.
Oh!
Now, the developers not only wanted to make Final Fantasy XIII-2 a better game than its predecessor, They also wanted the story to be darker and more mysterious. Speaking of the story, it was originally conceived to take place 900 years after Final Fantasy XIII. God knows what that would have been about. But eventually it was decided that the plot would focus instead on time travel. Sarah, who had spent most of the last game encased in ice, was promoted in Final Fantasy XIII to main character, with most of the original cast relegated to glorified cameos. But, we'll talk a little more about that later. Unlike previous Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy XIII-2 has only 2 playable characters. We have Sarah, our pink-haired heroine. In the last game, she was positively useless, but no longer. She has graduated to a bow-slinging, time-traveling bitch from hell. Well, she's from Grand Pulse, but you know what I mean. Haha. Our other playable character is the brooding ray of sunshine, No Christ. In his spare time, he likes to dissect girls.
Is that true?
Sure, why not? Haha. Coming from a time period where he's the last man standing, solitude is his second nature. And yet, his courage is unwavering as a blind man's gaze.
What?
You know, because they don't move their eyes due to the blindness.
I don't think that's accurate.
Silence, Bertram. I'll decide what is and isn't accurate. Thank you very much. Haha. Nill's mysterious past unravels beautifully as he fights alongside Sarah, showing massive restraint not to take that pink-haired cutie in his arms and not make passionate love to her. Though they are not playable, we can't forget our trusty Moogle companion Mog. He handily transforms into Sarah's nifty bow, and you can throw him to pick up shit that's just out of reach.
Oh, he's so cute.
He is that. Who else do we have? Oh yes, Caius Ballard, our purple-haired villain slash diva. His motive is as dastardly as his fashion sense. He wants to destroy time itself to, save a girl or some such bollocks. He's evil. If you see him, kick his ass. Next up, we have that girl Caius is trying to save. Yule. Dreadful name. Tragic character. And last, but most certainly not least, we have Lightning. She's a time-traveling badass, a warrior, and a sex symbol rolled into one. Sadly, unlike Final Fantasy XIII, she has less screen time here than the Invisible Man in a porno.
Ah!
That's a good one, isn't it? As diverse as the landscapes are, so are the gameplay options. Imagine driving a car with a clutch, brakes, an accelerator, a dead prostitute in the trunk, and then some. That's the gameplay of Final Fantasy XIII-2 for you.
I don't get it.
Basically, this game has lots of combat options.
Oh!
The usual turn-based combat of previous Final Fantasy games gets a major upgrade with the Paradigm Shift system. First introduced in Final Fantasy XIII, it is carried over to this sequel. No longer do your characters take turns hitting each other with oversized sex toys and vegetables. Though, technically, you still do that. Basically, your characters can shift between different combat roles, like the Commando, Ravager, Sentinel, Saboteur, Synergist. All of them a violent cog in a well-oiled fighting machine. And you will use that machine to kill your enemies with efficiency. Haha.
Nicely said, OCG.
Thank you, Bertram. So, apart from fighting enemies to the death, Final Fantasy XIII-2 also allows you to tame monsters and use them in combat. Ever wanted a pet that could rip your enemies to ribbons? Well, here you can have a whole collection of the little bastards. Tamagotchis, they are not. Trained killers, they are. Haha. Yet, Final Fantasy XIII-2 isn't just about tactical fights and pet management. There's also an ample serving of environmental puzzle solving, which is the game's way of breaking up all that combat you're going to be doing. For more information on the game's gameplay, including how you upgrade your characters or more information on the mini-games, then might I recommend you go and play the bloody game for yourselves. Haha. Get on your chocobo and come on down to Grand Pulse. The D in Grand is once again absent. I have reported its disappearance to the authorities, and I will keep you updated. In Final Fantasy XIII-2, we'll not only let you visit locations new and not so new, we'll let you fuck up the space-time continuum itself, revisiting those same locations across different periods. First up, we have New Bodom. When you first arrive, it's the peaceful seaside town where Sarah has settled into tranquil life as a school teacher. You can practically feel the sand between your toes, until paradoxes turn it into a monster-infested arena. Now you have monster bastards nibbling on your toes. We better move on. Next stop, the brain-freezing Brescia ruins, covered in ice and snow. What was once a buzzing city is now full of soldiers, researchers, and a giant mechanical hand? Oh dear. Better keep the hell away from that. No, actually, you have to fit that giant hand to progress, so ignore what I just said. Then we have Yashis Massif, which sounds like a made-up name, and it is. Next we have Uerba, an eerily beautiful deserted village, choked by the relentless devouring desert sands. Oop, there's those bloody monsters nibbling on our toes again. Get the hell off me, scum of Satan! Anyway, next up we have Academia, a neon-lit metropolis of the future with modern architecture, a multi-level layout, and hovering cars that make traffic jams a thing of the past. So come on down to Grand Pulse. Complimentary hand jobs for all men aged 45 and over.
You didn't mention the void beyond, Valhalla, or the Historia Crotch. I mean, Crocs.
And now I don't have to. Thank you, Bertram.
You're welcome.
So let's quickly recap the plot for Final Fantasy XIII-2, shall we? Now the game opens in 3AF. And for those of you who don't know, AF stands for After Farting. The game opens in 3AF as the Pulse Town Sarah lives in is attacked by monsters. A stranger named No appears to help fight the monsters and claims to be a time traveler from 700 AF. He arrived in her time via Valhalla, where he claims to have met Lightning as she guarded the throne of the weakened Etro. As part of Lightning's transfer to Valhalla, she was erased from the fall of Cocoon onwards, making everyone except Sarah forget her being with them on Gran Pulse. That's Gran Pulse, not Grand Pulse, Gran Pulse. And paradoxes have erupted throughout time, warping the timeline. Sarah joins Noel in a journey to resolve these paradoxes by removing items and monsters that are out of their original time. She hopes to find her sister, and he hopes, he being Noel hopes, to changing the bleak future he comes from. While journeying to 5 after farting to resolve a paradox on Cocoon, they meet and help Alyssa, an Academy member and survivor of the Purge. A massacre by the Sanctum at the beginning of Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy VIII. Final Fantasy XIII. Bloody Roman numeral bastards. Traveling to the ruined city of Padra in 10 AF, they find Hope leading the academy, with Alyssa as his assistant. They also find a recording of prophecies made by one of the seeresses of Padra, who are believed to have died out centuries prior. One fragmented prophecy shows Lightning in Valhalla. Padra is shrouded by an eclipse, which No says is not supposed to happen for several centuries. While Sarah and No resolve the paradox causing the eclipse, they encounter Caius Ballard, a man No knows from 700 AF, who opposes their mission, and Yule, who looks identical to a girl of the same name No knew in the future. After resolving the paradox, an alternative timeline appears in which there was never an eclipse. The repaired prophecy shows Caius in Valhalla fighting Lightning and the pillar supporting Cocoon collapsing. No claims that this takes place around 400 AF, devastating the human population as well as the world, creating a future where he is the last human in existence. Sarah and No move on, while Hope and Alyssa work on finding a way to prevent the pillar's collapse. In 300 AF, the pair find Snow fighting a giant paradox-fueled monster that is dissolving the crystal pillar After resolving the paradox, which delays the fall of Cocoon until 500 AF, Snow disappears again as an anomaly from another time. The pair then go to the city of Academia on Grand Pulse in 400 AF, where they are attacked by the city's AI, which claims they were killed 200 years previously. Traveling to 200 AF, they discover a paradox whereby a man-made foul sea meant to re-levitate Cocoon turned on its creators. Resolving the paradox, Noel and Sarah travel to an alternative 400 AF Academia. In this world, the pair find Hope and Alyssa again, who had put themselves in stasis. They explain their new plan to mechanically float a new cocoon to hold humanity, which Sarah and Noel help with before heading to 500 AF Academia. They are betrayed by Alyssa, revealed to be a living paradox doomed to disappear in the corrected timeline, and trapped by Caius in dream worlds. Before being trapped, Sarah meets the spirit of Yule, who explains that she is the seeress of Padra, continually reincarnated throughout history, while Caius is her immortal guardian, gifted with Etro's own heart. Yule explains that every time the timeline is changed, the resulting shock kills her. Caius has been driven mad by watching her die repeatedly, and seeks to end the process by unleashing the chaos trapped in Valhalla to destroy all time. Sarah has the same power, and risks death every time she changes the future. Resolving to go on, Sarah breaks free of her dream world and frees Noel from his, in which he is the last living human, after his Yule dies and Caius leaves for Valhalla. After briefly encountering lightning, the pair fight Caius, first in 500 AF Academia, and then in Valhalla. As they defeat him, he claims to have killed lightning, then impales himself through the heart on Noel's blade, killing the weakened Etro. When the pair return to Academia in 500 AF, where Vanille and Fang have been rescued from the collapsing pillar, and the new cocoon named Buenavalise has risen, Sarah dies in front of Noel and Hope from the shock of the future changing. A black cloud erupts from the sky as the chaos that Etro was keeping trapped breaks free. Lightning is then shown in crystal stasis on the throne of Etro's temple. If the player completes all optional parts of the game, they are shown an additional scene in which Caius is on the throne, declaring that the goddess is gone for good, and that Yule and he can begin a new life freed from their curse. So, that's the plot of Final Fantasy XIII-2. Isn't it bloody complicated? Final Fantasy XIII-2 was released in 2013 to mostly positive reviews. Many considered it to be an improvement on Final Fantasy XIII. And before you say anything, Bertram, if you want to know what I think, you can check out my review like everyone else.
Oh!
The game would be followed by a sequel 2 years later. And yes, Of course, we will be talking about that game next. So, if you haven't already, then I implore you to buy, download, steal, or sell your body to get your hands on Final Fantasy 13-2 and play it, goddammit. So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, our retrospective for Final Fantasy 13-2. If you enjoyed this little video of ours, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, well then feel free to give me a thumbs down. Please go and check out the full review and full game playthrough for Final Fantasy 13-2, both of which are on the channel right about now. But please remember the single most important thing I always tell you, dear viewer, and that is to always stay obsessed with gaming. Say goodbye, Bertram.
Goodbye, Bertram.